who has supported our channel through demonetization to help us roll out this new format. Your donations have helped us build a small little studio and get some half-decent equipment in here to create better videos. So again, we really appreciate it and hope that you've been enjoying the new content. Alright, let's get started with the questions, and remember, if you'd like to submit questions in the future, please join us on Patreon and we promise to get to you in the next Q&A. Okay, first question is from Amit. He writes, "Thank you for answering my question in the last video. Feel free to pick out anything of what I'm writing below to address in the next one." I'll just respond to all of them here, why not? Number 1. Tucker Carlson and Michael Savage both have interesting books out right now. Will you be reading them, and if not doing a book review, sprinkling some tidbits from those books into your commentary? Absolutely. I actually just downloaded Tucker's audiobook for Ship of Fools, which I think is still #1 on the bestseller list right now. I haven't started it yet, but I do plan on doing it this week. And then Savage's new book is called Stop Mass Hysteria, America's Insanity from the Salem Witch Trials to the Trump Witch Hunt. This book I haven't gotten yet, but I will when my Audible credits replenish at the end of the month. I don't actually sit down and read books anymore because of my time constraints, but I always have audiobooks playing wherever I'm at, and I am looking forward to listening to both of these. Not sure yet whether I want to do a dedicated book review or just reference the books in commentary here and there. I'll decide that after I finish them, but yeah, definitely be on the lookout for that soon. Second question from Amit. "The divisiveness currently gripping the nation is exactly what our enemies have been hoping for. We know that Russia and others have funded rallies and social media supporting both far left and far right ideologies. Beyond getting high ratings, why do you think the media never talks about this fact even though sites on both sides have reported it?" So I think there's several factors that play a role here, but the main one is probably economic. I think that the Russia meddling story in particular has just lost its impact because of how much it got repeated and exhausted so heavily in the aftermath of the 2016 election. So you compare that to the crazy news stories that break every single day, and I think people on all sides of the political spectrum have lost interest in hearing about Russia when they turn on the news or in clicking on these types of stories when they pop up in their feed. The news business, for better or worse, is all about getting clicks and eyeballs, so that does dictate what gets coverage, but I do think it's important that Americans are aware of this and understand that our adversaries are trying to use social media and the internet to create internal division and conflict. And I don't think this should be too hard of a message for Americans to accept. I mean, our two biggest non-democratic rivals are China and Russia, right? Does anyone really believe that Putin and Xi Jinping are content to remain second or third place indefinitely, forever and always? No, right? Their goal as leaders is to someday overtake us as the preeminent superpower, ideally while they're still alive. But obviously that's really unlikely to happen militarily. So what options do they have if they want to stay in power and retain the support of their people? Well, they have to make democracy look bad. They have to make it look chaotic, inefficient, easily manipulated by external forces, and ultimately unsustainable. If they can successfully induce discord and conflict in America, it gives them an opening to gain some ground. And to them, I don't even think it's really about helping a particular candidate become president. It's more about weakening our belief in representative democracy and convincing their people that our system is a joke. For example, I'm sure watching this Kavanaugh confirmation circus has reinforced many of Russia and China's reservations about democracy. Those governments are definitely not interested in wasting limited time and resources on these types of embarrassing public spectacles, national spectacles, so we just have to be aware of that and try not to make our system look so bad to skeptical observers around the world. Alright, last question from Amit. Who are some of the more sane and moderate left-wing voices who you think are worth listening to in a debate with those from our side of the aisle? Maybe it doesn't make for good television, but I'd love to see Tucker have more people like that on his show. Well, personally, I would love to see Sam Harris come on to debate or just have a conversation with Tucker. I don't agree with a lot of Sam's ideas on policy and the role of government, but he is definitely committed to using reason and evidence to guide his thinking and beliefs, which is something I value above all else. I also follow Brett and Eric Weinstein, the intellectual dark web brothers, as well as Dave Rubin on the Rubin Report, and also Jonathan Haidt. He just released a new book called The Coddling of the American Mind, in which he reviews all of the new data on the ideological shift that's been happening on college campuses. I just started it and it's been really good so far. I think the unifying theme amongst all of these thinkers on the center left that I follow is that they are all classical liberals who believe in free speech and rational discourse. They're not hardcore leftists. They are generally more in favor of utilizing the federal government to achieve well-intentioned outcomes, which is something I'm hesitant about because I think people who are drawn to working for the state are not the most intelligent or competent people that we have available. So that's why I prefer for government to be more limited. But yeah, I would love to see all of these guys featured more in conservative media outlets. All right, Amit, hopefully I answered everything. We will look into the Washington Times article that you sent us. And as for your suggestion about posting our videos on Patreon for a more focused discussion, I think that's a great idea. The only thing I worry about is if some Patreon content reviewer comes across our page and deems our videos to be offensive and in violation of terms of service for whatever reason. You might remember what happened to Lauren Southern, but we'll deal with that if and when it becomes a problem. For now, I definitely think it would be great to have a more focused and intellectual discussion with our patrons. So we'll give that a go. Thank you for your suggestion. Next question is from William, who asks, where does the Liberty Hound profile picture come from? Is he a family pet or just a random dog on the internet? So the Liberty Hound profile pic is actually a modified painting from a 19th century painter, an Austrian painter called Karl Reichert, I think. And we edited it a little with the flag bandana and the border, and it just ended up looking like an awesome logo for the channel, so we kept it. The channel name and logo is actually inspired by my dog. I have a black and tan dachshund, but we love all dogs here at the Hound, so that's why we like to feature all different kinds of breeds and mixes at the end of our videos, and hopefully you guys are enjoying that. Alright, next question is from Taryn. Do you believe October Surprise is a real strategy parties use to undermine the opposition? Yes, I do think it's a real attempted strategy in some election cycles. So for our international viewers who may not be familiar with the phrase, October Surprise refers to a really shocking revelation that's released right before the November election in order to make one candidate look really good if it's a positive story, or to make the opposition candidate look really bad if it's a negative story. One of the original and probably best known October Surprise stories was the alleged conspiracy plot in the 1980 election in which Reagan defeated Jimmy Carter, and the allegation there was that Reagan's officials, including George Bush Sr., secretly met and conspired with the Iranian government to delay the release of hostages until after the election. And Iran actually ended up releasing the hostages, I think like 10 or 20 minutes after Reagan's inauguration. So it was curious timing, but realistically speaking, Reagan absolutely destroyed Carter in that election anyway, so I doubt it would have made a difference even if Carter had been able to secure the hostage release before the election. But back to your question, I think campaigns are always looking for dirt and oppo research, and particularly in close presidential elections, these last-second revelations can definitely have an impact. It can be difficult to precisely estimate how significant the impact was with post-election polling data, but we do know from historical exit polls that quite a few people do make up their mind about a candidate in the weeks immediately preceding the election. And also, it's gotten to the point now where it doesn't even need to be the internal campaign itself that executes the surprise, because now you have entire media companies that have effectively sworn allegiance to a particular political party, and they seem more than happy to do what they can on their own in order to help their favorite candidate. Just as a recent example, there's the infamous Access Hollywood tape that NBC put out just a month before the election in 2016. So yeah, I think campaigns are always looking for an edge, and this is one of many strategies they'll look to employ if they can and if they have the dirt. Alright, next up is Roger. He asks, my wife and I love your new format, but wondering why you made the change. I see lots of news compilation channels pop up in my feed, and they must be monetized because they have ads. Yeah, so what's happening right now is that YouTube is trying to crack down and demonetize channels that don't produce original content, which includes all of the compilation type channels. The problem is that they're really backed up all the time, especially with the gaming and Fortnite channels. So the channels that you're referring to probably haven't been reviewed yet. I know exactly what you're talking about because I see them all the time on my feed as well. And I don't think most casual viewers know this, but most of these channels are actually based in India, Vietnam, and somewhere in Europe. And the guys who run these channels are just trying to capitalize off of American politics. They don't even watch or understand what they post. A lot of them post full-length episodes of news programs all day long, and they do seem to have an effective strategy in place for evading scrutiny by YouTube. I might actually do a dedicated video on this if there's enough interest, because I actually think it's really funny how a lot of these channels are set up. But obviously we did get flagged and reviewed, so we can't post pure news clips like before because there's a good chance we'll be terminated since we're already on their radar. But honestly, I think this was a blessing in disguise for our channel. I really enjoy producing the new format. It's forcing me to stay even more informed than before and to develop new skills as well, and hopefully our channel continues to get better over time. Okay, next is Carolyn. She writes, I've noticed that mainstream TV networks are gaining a bigger presence on YouTube. What does this mean for independent content creators like yourself? It would be a shame if YouTube just becomes a rerun of TV, especially for political commentary. That's a great question that I think a lot of YouTubes are worried about, but the short answer is that it's hard to know what the future of YouTube is going to be. I completely understand why the late night talk shows and the mainstream media outlets are so focused on YouTube right now. It is the second most visited site in the world, and it gives them access to younger audiences that probably don't watch their programming on TV. So why not post their content on YouTube, right? The content's already been created, so putting it on YouTube costs nothing to them, and it just gives them additional ad revenue and potentially new fans. And for YouTube, this is a great partnership for them because they don't have to worry about applying the demonetization guidelines when it comes to TV shows. These shows are effectively pre-approved for monetization since everybody knows that they already have ads playing on them when they air on TV, so there's no expectation for YouTube to demonetize them for discussing sensitive content. Who this damages is obviously the independent creators because we can talk about the same exact controversial topics that the mainstream outlets do and use the same language, even make the same points, but YouTube's demonetization algorithm will demonetize us and leave the network channels alone. So the mainstream media outlets and late night hosts basically have this seal of approval to comment on controversial political topics that we simply don't have. So it's a serious challenge for independent political voices on YouTube because when your video gets demonetized, you don't just miss out on ad revenue, you also miss out on audience reach. YouTube has no incentive to promote demonetized videos on the homepage or on recommended videos on the sidebar because without playing those ads, YouTube doesn't make any money either. So financially, it's better for them to just promote the approved political commentary clips from the late night hosts, which is why you'll notice that these videos are always trending and have millions and millions of views. So Carolyn, all I can say is that it's a challenge right now and I don't see any signs of improvement. I don't see any desire on YouTube's part to try and level the playing field for independent creators, especially in political commentary. Politics is only a small part of YouTube's overall content, and I think they're fine with letting the mainstream voices control it so that they can focus on other priorities. And if that ends up being the case, then independent creators like us will just have to continue relying on crowdfunding support, or another platform is going to have to step up and fill the void. Unfortunately, the current alt media platforms aren't very well developed yet, but hopefully they can make the requisite improvements to properly compete with YouTube in the future. Okay, last question is from Fiona. You said in your last video that you're a big football fan. Who do you have winning the college football playoff and the Super Bowl this year? Well, for college, I would like to see a new champion this year, so I'm not going to pick Alabama or Clemson, but I am an SEC fan, so I'm hoping that LSU can get it done this year. They got that signature win against Georgia on Saturday, so they have the best shot out of Alabama to win the conference, but they still got to beat Bama in, I think, 3 weeks at home in order to have a realistic shot at the playoff. So it's definitely a tough road ahead, but I think they can pull it off this year. At least I'm hoping they can. As for the NFL, I'd honestly be happy with any team other than the Patriots winning the Super Bowl. I'm just ready for something new. No offense to our subscribers who might be Patriots fans. I still think Brady's the GOAT, but I'm tired of seeing them win. The Chiefs have looked really good, and they're a lot of fun to watch, but they lost that close game in Foxborough yesterday. Apart from them, I don't see anyone in the AFC that can really challenge the Patriots, so I'm hoping that whoever comes out of the NFC can knock them off in the Super Bowl. Alright, well, that is it for this Q&A. I really hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you again to everyone who has supported us and also to our future supporters. You guys are our lifeblood, and we can't thank you enough for helping us transform this channel. And just a heads up, I am having a minor procedure tomorrow that might keep me out of the studio for a few days. So if you don't see any uploads, that's why. But we'll get caught up as soon as I'm recovered, I promise, and I'll see you guys then.